Hi, I'm Miranda Birchfield. I'm a wedding and portrait photographer located in Central Mississippi. There's a question that I receive often from other photographers, and that is how I make my flat lay mats for wedding detail photos. So I'll show you a mat that I've already created. This is the second one that I have made like this. The first one got bent whenever we moved, whenever my husband and I moved into our house. And so I created a second one, and you can see it's just a poster board with paint on it, and the paint has a bit of a texture to it. So the way I create, oh, here's my cat, she's coming to visit. You can't be up here. Oh, come on. You want to come see the camera? You want to see the camera? Woo, that's nosy. Okay, so I showed you the mat that I had already made. It is just a flexible poster board with acrylic paint on one side, and then to apply the paint I used one of these green and yellow sponges. It's the heavy duty scrub sponge these are from Great Value, but I'm sure you can get them probably anywhere that sells household goods. So I apply the paint with the green side of the sponge because the yellow side has the spongy texture, and I don't want it to look sponged on. I want it to have more of a textured fabric look or stone look. Oh, here's Newsy again. So I'm going to put one on each side so that this will be a double-sided mat. And I bought two colors that I felt like would work well with the color palettes of the weddings that I typically go to. So the color on the one that I had just shown you, I believe the color of that paint was called Parchment. I've got a lighter brown, well, light brown, it's darker than the Parchment, but it's called Light Mocha. And then there's one called Blue Cotton. I'm going to start with the Blue Cotton because it's more different than the Parchment color that I already have. Hey, Newsy, you looking outside? Okay, so I'm going to start by just drizzling paint on in no particular pattern. I just don't want it to look too intentional. And then I'm just going to stamp with the green side of the sponge. And then after I've stamped for a little bit, I'm going to smear some of it. And I'm going to keep doing that until we've covered the full poster board. And after I smear it, I'm going to go back on and stamp for that stamped texture, sort of a stippled look. And I'm going to apply more paint to the areas with less coverage. And I've got the poster board held down with coffee cups because I didn't want it to shift while I was doing this. Ideally, you'd probably want to do this outside, but it's super windy outside today, and I didn't want to fight the wind. Right now, I'm just doing a swirly pattern over the whole thing, and then I'm going to go back and stamp over that, and you can make some other little marks throughout the pattern. That texture is really going to give it the look of being some sort of actual environmental background like you would actually find at the wedding, rather than just a solid sheet of color. Before all of my weddings, I send out a questionnaire to my clients to ask them what the color palette for their wedding is going to be and what florals they intend to have, so that I can know going into the wedding day what sort of accessories I'm going to need with me for styling their flat lays. All right, just need a little bit more coverage. Whenever I made the first flat lay mats, I believe I used a full bottle of the Parchment color, but I'm definitely not going to need a full bottle for this. This color has really good coverage. These poster boards do come in colors, so if you like the color of the existing color of the poster boards, that is an option. I just personally like for the background to not be too smooth. I don't always use a flat lay mat at weddings. Again, I try and find an actual environmental background, a tile floor or a pretty carpet or something like that that actually is part of the wedding day. so that I can incorporate that, because your clients picked the venue that they picked for a reason. I'm sure they like it. So that's usually my intention. However, even whenever I do that, sometimes I will break out the just neutral colored flat lay mat, because it really makes detail items pop. And you'll notice as it's getting wet, it's curving a little bit. This one was already a little bit warped because it's been riding around in my Jeep for since December, I believe, and this is March, because I've been planning on making this video for a while. That's okay. I personally don't mind that it's a little bit warped, because the day of the wedding, I'm going to be holding it down with heavy items anyway. Not coffee cups, but I will have it weighted, so. And of course, the actual items themselves will help flatten it out, so that's not something I care about. This is a really, really affordable way to get a mat. And I have a few other ideas on how to make different flat lay mats that I haven't actually tried yet, but that's something I plan to do this year and would be happy to make more videos about the process. I'm going to check and make sure that this color has not bled through onto the table. I don't think it has. These are pretty thick. Oh yeah, it's not coming through whatsoever. So if you do want to make these on your kitchen table, that is an option. Okay, now I'm going to put paint directly on my sponge. This is going to take a while to dry with as much paint as I've put on it. And just stamp. So we've got a variety of textures. And stamping also helps cover up any areas where the paint's thin or missed. I don't mind if the paint is a little bit thick in places, even though that will take longer for it to dry. I am not in a hurry for it to dry, and I like the visible texture, which is the reason for using a sponge and adding paint. Visible texture. You don't want too much visible texture because you don't want to take away from the detail items. But I feel like it looks really elevated and natural if there is some sort of a bit of texture going on. Most of the texture will not even show up in the photos, but I think, I'll give you another example. This, with its texture, I feel like photographs a lot better than just this smooth kind of, it's not really shiny, but it does have a bit of a reflection to it. I don't know if you can still see this. I moved out of the frame. I feel like this looks too artificial. And I'm not sure if any of that makes any sense, but it's the approach that I have. So here's the finished product. It's gonna take a little while to dry. I'm gonna put it on my porch and let it dry out there. And then once it's done, I'm going to do a little flat lay on it and post the pictures along with it so you can see the final results. And I will also include the price of what I paid for each of the items that I used, because I did keep the receipt from them for that purpose. And I will also include some images that I took from real life weddings and just practice photos with the already existing mat that I had shown at the beginning. Okay, I'm outside now with the mat, which dried really quickly, and here it is with a pair of shoes as a pretend detail item set up.